The old woman lived at the end of Willow Street, in a ramshackle house that had seen better days. Her name was Eleanor, and the townsfolk spoke of her in hushed tones, as if she were a living legend. She was an enigma, a solitary figure who had lived in that decaying house for as long as anyone could remember. Eleanor was a frail, wizened soul with eyes that had seen a lifetime of joys and sorrows. Her silver hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall of moonlight, and her hands trembled as she moved about her cluttered home. She rarely ventured beyond her front gate, and the overgrown garden seemed to serve as a barrier between her and the outside world. As the years passed, the rumors about Eleanor grew more fantastical. Some said she possessed mystical powers capable of predicting the future or communicating with spirits. Others claimed she was a witch, able to conjure spells and hexes with a mere whisper. But the truth was far less sensational. Eleanor was simply a woman who had outlived her contemporaries, a keeper of secrets and stories that had been all but forgotten. One chilly autumn evening, as the leaves rustled in the fading light, I mustered the courage to visit Eleanor's house. I had heard the rumors, but my curiosity got the better of me. I approached her weathered front door and knocked gently, my heart pounding in my chest. The door creaked open, revealing Eleanor's frail form. Her eyes, like ancient marbles, studied me for a moment before she spoke, her voice a soft, raspy whisper. "What brings you here, child?" I stammered, trying to find the words to explain my visit. I told her of the stories I had heard, of the mysteries that shrouded her existence. She nodded knowingly, as if she had expected such a visit. "Come in," she said, her voice filled with a strange mix of melancholy and wisdom. As I stepped into her dimly lit home, I was surrounded by a sea of knickknacks and dusty old books. The air was thick with the scent of ancient memories, a tapestry of moments that had long since faded into the past. Eleanor offered me a cup of tea, and as I sipped the warm, soothing liquid, she began to share her stories. She spoke of a love lost to time, of dreams that had never been realized, and of the joys and sorrows that had marked her long, solitary life. Her tales were like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, each one adding depth and color to the portrait of the woman before me. As the night wore on, Eleanor's eyes glistened with tears, and I realized that beneath the rumors and the mystique, she was just a lonely soul, yearning for human connection. She had become a legend, but she was also a woman burdened by the weight of her own history. Before I left, Eleanor gave me a small, weathered book, a collection of her own writings and musings. She told me to share her stories with the world, to ensure that her experiences were not forgotten. With a promise to return, I stepped out into the chilly night, carrying with me the legacy of an old woman who had lived a life both ordinary and extraordinary. Eleanor remained a mystery to the townsfolk, but to me she was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the quietest corners of the world, there are stories waiting to be heard and hearts waiting to be understood. And I knew that I would cherish the time I had spent with the old woman at the end of Willow Street, for she had shared with me the greatest gift of all, her own humanity. I made my way to the center of the store, where the Target logo still hung above the once bustling customer service counter. The eerie silence was deafening as I approached the heart of the abandoned superstore. The shelves were a haphazard mess, with clothes strewn about like discarded memories. Mannequins, their lifeless eyes staring into the void, stood sentinel in the dimly lit aisles. I shivered as I realized how profoundly isolated I was in this vast, empty space. Every step echoed through the cavernous store, a constant reminder of my solitude. I told myself that I was safe here, that whatever lurked in the shadows was just a product of my overactive imagination. But then I heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper. My heart quickened and I strained to make out the words. It was as if someone or something was calling my name. "Sarah," the voice whispered. A haunting echo that seemed to come from all directions at once. Panic gripped me as I looked around, searching for the source of the voice. There was no one there, just the abandoned aisles and the cold, unforgiving darkness. I tried to convince myself that it was my own mind playing tricks on me, that the isolation was finally getting to me. But deep down, I knew there was something more sinister at play. I continued to explore the store, my footsteps echoing through the empty space. The eerie feeling of being watched never left me, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. "Sarah!" they called, their tone filled with an unsettling mix of longing and malice. I stumbled upon the toy section, where rows of forgotten playthings gathered dust. Dolls with cracked porcelain faces stared blankly into the distance, and action figures lay discarded on the floor. The whispers grew more pronounced, their words becoming clearer with each passing moment. "Sarah, why did you leave us?" they hissed, a chorus of ghostly voices that sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't take it anymore. The fear that had been building inside me finally boiled over, and I turned to flee, to escape this nightmarish place. But as I reached the automatic doors, they slammed shut with a deafening crash, trapping me inside. I pounded on the glass, screaming for someone, anyone to hear me, but there was no one left in this forsaken town. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if they were closing in on me. I backed away from the doors, my heart pounding in my chest. The shelves seemed to come alive, their contents shifting and moving as if manipulated by an unseen force. Toys tumbled from the shelves, their eyes following me as they fell. I stumbled backward, my feet tripping over a discarded tricycle, and I fell to the floor. The whispers grew deafening, a cacophony of voices that filled the air. "Sarah, you can't escape," they taunted, their words laced with a malevolent glee. In a desperate bid for escape, I crawled away from the advancing toys and shelves, my hands scraping against the cold, hard floor. I had to find a way out, had to escape this nightmare. But the store seemed to twist and contort around me, the walls closing in as if determined to keep me here forever. And then, just as I felt myself on the verge of madness, the whispers stopped, and the darkness lifted. I found myself standing at the entrance of the abandoned Target store once more. The automatic doors were wide open, and the neon sign flickered weakly above, casting a feeble light on the cracked pavement. I stumbled out into the cold night, gasping for breath and covered in sweat. As I looked back at the forsaken superstore, I knew that I had narrowly escaped something unspeakable. The whispers still echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of the horrors that lurked within the abandoned aisles of Target. I had sought refuge in the darkness, but I had found something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. And as I walked away from that cursed place, I knew that I would never truly escape the terrors that had taken hold of my life. I had heard the rumors, the chilling tales that had been passed down through hushed whispers in the darkest corners of town. They spoke of Target, but not the bustling superstore that once thrived with shoppers. No, this was a different kind of Target, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead blurred, a place that defied the laws of reality. With a heavy heart and a gnawing curiosity, I decided to venture into this forsaken realm. I had been warned, but my desperation for answers outweighed the fear that clung to those stories like a malevolent fog. I entered the dilapidated building, and the moment my foot crossed the threshold, a sense of dread washed over me. The once bright interior was now a haunting wasteland. Shelves of forgotten merchandise lined the aisles, but it was not the discarded goods that sent a shiver down my spine. It was the presence, something unnatural that hung in the air, an unseen force that watched and waited. I navigated my way deeper into the store, the flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. A soft, almost inaudible hum filled the air, a dissonant melody that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. It was as though the building itself was alive, pulsing with a malevolent energy. As I passed the abandoned checkout lanes, I heard a distant whisper. It was a voice, sweet and innocent, like that of a child. "Play with me," it beckoned, the words dripping with an otherworldly charm. My heart raced as I tried to pinpoint the source, but the voice seemed to come from all directions at once. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to flee, but I couldn't resist the pull. I followed the ethereal voice, my steps guided by an unseen hand. It led me to the toy section, a place where time had frozen. The shelves were adorned with dolls that stared with vacant eyes, and the toys seemed to come alive, their limbs moving with an unnatural grace. The voice grew stronger, more seductive, as if it were drawing me into a web of enchantment. "Come closer," it cooed, and I couldn't help but obey. I reached out to touch one of the dolls, and as my fingers brushed its porcelain skin, it turned its head to meet my gaze. Its eyes, once lifeless, now glowed with a sinister light. I stumbled back, horror coursing through my veins, but it was too late. The toys, the dolls, the very walls of the store seemed to come alive, twisting and contorting in unnatural ways. They closed in on me, their lifeless forms moving with a malevolent intent. "Play with us," they chanted in unison, their voices echoing in my mind. I tried to escape, but the aisles had become a labyrinth, constantly shifting and rearranging themselves to block my path. Panic set in as I realized there was no way out. The toys reached out with elongated limbs, their fingers like talons, and I felt their icy touch on my skin. They pulled me closer, their grip unbreakable. I screamed, but my cries were drowned out by the haunting chorus of the toys. And then, with a sudden bone-chilling silence, they released me. I fell to the floor, gasping for breath as the toys retreated back to their shelves, their eyes once again lifeless. I crawled away, my mind shattered by the horrors I had witnessed. I knew I had escaped the clutches of Target, but the scars it had left on my soul would never heal. It was a place where the line between the living and the dead had been irrevocably blurred, a place that hungered for the souls of those foolish enough to enter. As I stumbled out into the cold night, I could still hear the whispers, the haunting echoes of that otherworldly realm. And I knew, with a sinking certainty, that I would never be free of the terror that had consumed me in that accursed place. Target, the store that defied reality itself, would forever haunt my nightmares.